All right, welcome to day 6 of cycling in New Zealand. To day 6, my plan was to go from where I spent the night, was that like Moutere, and to go basically to Takaka. It's a small town up in Golden Bay, and the closer I was sort of on this going that way, I kept on, hearing about, oh, by the way, there's a hill in between, and, that hill's really high, and the hill's called Takaka Hill. And, people told me, like, to drive up it, and I didn't really understand what they meant. And I did know that the hill was 800 meters, but like I said, this was my first cycle touring trip. I didn't really know what an 800-meter hill would mean, especially if it's 800 meters, 8 kilometers, so that's pretty, well, anyways. So I started to have a casual morning, have breakfast with the Warm Showers host, leave, and I'm like, oh, I'll take a 30 or 40 kilometer detour and kind of go by a little more of a coastal route. But anyway, so I just kind of get back on the road, as you can see, and I take this 30 or 40 kilometer detour. And the first sort of getting to the coast was pretty flat. It was pretty easy, and you can see some pictures of the water here. Like, this was sort of like a campsite town, really. One store, which was kind of surrounded by this campsite. I had lunch here with my bike laying up against the beach wall with the boat in the distance. I guess that's where I was, Mahara. And this is me sort of kind of just cycling on the road. But as I was leaving the cycle park, because I still had probably about another 60 kilometers to go, it started raining a little bit, and then it started to get hilly, but it wasn't. Basically, going this extra coastal route was really interesting, and I'm definitely glad I did it, because I got to see a lot of other things. And here's kind of an old boat that was for sale. But when I finally got back onto the road, it said, okay, Takaka, 47 kilometers to go, and that's where I was supposed to be by the night, or spend the night there. And I had this 800-meter, 8-kilometer climb in between. So I'm like, okay, well, it's about, I think it was about 3:30, 2.5 hours of daylight. If I really if I work hard, I can get there. And this is at the point where I didn't really know that, okay, 47 kilometers may not be a lot. Obviously, if you're going 18 kilometers an hour, you're going to get there in plenty of time. But with this huge hill in between, and so this is a bit of the hill as I'm just sort of in the foothills, and I'm going up it, but I can't actually cycle up it. It's too hard. So I'm basically pushing the bike. I'm walking the bike up the hill and doing this, just really, really long, really, really long. And I keep on thinking, okay, I'm almost at the top. I'm almost at the top. I'm almost at the top. I'm getting really, really high up. I'm almost at the top. I'm almost at the top. Still not at the top. Still not at the top. And then this is actually the last picture of the day. You can see I'm still kind of okay there. I think just about right after this picture, it started to rain. So now I'm pushing the bike up in rain, and then it's getting darker and darker and darker, and suddenly I sort of enter a period where it really is only maybe 30 minutes of light left. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make it. Like, well, if I get to the top really soon, I can, fly down and I'll make it to the town. And I wasn't anywhere near the top really by the time it was completely dark, and it was raining, and I was pushing the bike up the hill. And at this point, I was like, okay, I'm just going to stay at the next place I come to, but there's really nothing hardly on the hill. So at one point, a van pulled over, this lady and her daughter, and they asked, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to make it to the top of the hill." I mean, I didn't really know what to say. I suppose I could have asked them, "I'm not going to make it. Can I come spend the night with you?" And who knows? I mean, that might have worked in New Zealand, but they didn't offer. Okay, so what do you do in this situation? You sort of plan the day out. You can't get there in time. Okay, and it's raining. Well, I think when you're cycle touring, you sort of basically, at least for me, and unless you've planned out really well and you're in really good shape, you need to be prepared. So what I did is I just pulled over at the next sort of picnic stop. You'll see these all over in New Zealand, little kind of outlooks. It was a bit off the road. It was probably about 100, 200 feet. I set up camp. I put all my stuff in the tent. The tent did get wet inside. So now it's a waterproof tent, but setting up the tent, it's a few minutes. But then I took, basically some clothing, like dried up as much as I could inside. And then I had dinner inside the tent, and I was basically in the tent for the next 12 hours, because from about 7 p.m. to the next morning, it was completely dark, because it's Southern Hemisphere. It was June or May or June. Anyways, it's winter there, so it gets really dark, and it's a ridiculous amount of rain, just an absolute ridiculous amount of rain. And that was not a fun experience. I think, basically no one likes getting caught out in the middle of the night in a huge rainstorm with nowhere to stay. But I say all that, it's okay, as bad as that was, it was doable. I had the tent, I had the sleeping bag, I had plenty of food, I had plenty of water, and this is something I hadn't really mentioned. I was always traveling with pretty much a 2-day supply of food, so there was never a situation where, okay, I'm going to be in a place and then not have any food to eat. So I ate as much as I wanted. I was probably eating about 3,500 calories a day, and actually gained about 20 pounds over the 6 weeks. So yeah. And it wasn't a great pleasurable experience, I should say, but it was interesting and something I can look back on. It's I did Takaka Hill, and I'll tell you about it tomorrow when we're going down it. And basically, that day I took this detour. I didn't really know how, what an 800-meter, 8-kilometer climb would mean. And if you don't know what it means, it's basically, it feels like it's straight up. I mean, it was even hard to walk it up. Pushing the bike, I think it'd be hard just to walk it, not pushing the bike. Remember, the bike is the bike in the gear is probably about 60 pounds. So that was day 6. It taught me a lot about kind of, having that day like that. It really taught me, it's okay, I need to be a little more interested in, or maybe a lot more interested in knowing what about hill elevations and distances and what I'm actually capable of. And I think I did better after that. I didn't really get caught in that kind of situation again, or even close, and I had sort of planned it out a little differently, better. So wing it, but I think also know that if you can't make it over the hill before it gets dark, you don't want to cycle at night. Dangerous, not a good idea in any circumstance. Even a worse idea, cycling at night in a rainstorm. At that point, the safe thing to do, the smart thing to do, is next time there's a free space. It's called primitive camping. Just set up a tent. Now, technically, primitive camping is not allowed in New Zealand, but I think in this kind of circumstance, if you don't abuse it, because it's safer to do that than to cycle on the road. No one even came in and bothered me or asked me anything. All right, this has been day 6 of cycling in New Zealand. See you next time.